Hi everyone, I'm your host Emma Burgich.
And I'm your co-host, Jose Camacho.
Whether you're a player or a coach,
or you're just passionate about what you do and you want to be the best at it,
this is the EMAzing podcast for you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the EMAzing Tennis Podcast. Emma, take it away from me.
I will. Okay, today we have with us Juan Benitez from Colombia. We're very good friends. We played at Baylor together just for 1 year. Just a little bit about Juan. Your best ranking was 550 in the world, which is actually pretty impressive for how little you have played. He was number one. He played line one at Baylor, and he was ranked top 5 in the country, All-American singles and doubles, which is pretty impressive. After that, he pursued his coaching career, so he's been working on getting on tour, maybe in being a coach on tour. He's worked with, he was a hitting partner to Amanda Anisimova, helped a little bit with Coco Gauff. A lot of good stories that Juan is going to share. We reconnected actually at the Miami Pro Course, and for me what was very impressive to see was that your motivation, your drive, it's just like you can see how much love you have for the game and how much you care. And since me, doing my comeback, you're very involved, constantly giving me advice, which I really appreciate. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking right now. Juan, welcome. Thank you for being a guest.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is also my first time doing a podcast, so I'm a little nervous. But we reconnected in the pro course, and it's just kind of like trying to have a little more of a professional approach to my coaching career right now. That before, I always knew I was going to go into the coaching path because of what you notice, that I mean, tennis has been pretty much my life. I started when I was 4. I moved out of Colombia to Argentina when I was 13 at a very, very young age by myself. My parents were still in Colombia for them to be able to afford me staying in this academy where I lived for 5 years before going to Baylor. I didn't really think I was going to Baylor or to college at all until the very end, which I had to decide, okay, do I have the financials to pursue my professional career right away, or do I take a step aside and put that on the back burner and get an education while playing, and also staying active and playing at a good school. So luckily I landed at Baylor, and I was able to, unfortunately, only play one season for different reasons. The season 2017, which I was able to achieve the number 5 in the country, number 8 in doubles. Side story, or like an addition to that, I did that playing one-handed backhand, which I never played one-handed backhand ever. So, I mean, lots of players, and if anybody knows me, they know that I always run around the backhand pretty much as I can. And so I started the season very successfully because people couldn't figure out how to play me. So they were trying to find my backhand, and I was running around it, so that was kind of like my specialty. But then at the end of the season, as the season progressed, they noticed that I didn't know how to generate pace with the backhand, and they were open me on the forehand and then making me hit a backhand on the run. Mm-hmm. Whereas at first was just like they were just hitting to the outside. So that was like my niche. Like, okay, I'm very good at this side. So then at the end, I didn't finish the season as I started it, because that 5 in the country was me winning some very good matches like January, February, March. But then as the season progressed, people were able to figure me out. But later on I healed, and I was able to be back with a 200 backhand. And actually, luckily, that injury made me get my backhand even better, because I switched my grip, because I had a little bit more of a Western grip on my left hand. So sometimes we freak out with certain things, with with a hurdle on our journey, and we just gotta be a little patient and maybe see or think for a second, you know what, this might be something that will launch me and help me even more. So like not seeing as a setback, it's just, hey, this might help me to improve. This might help me to mature. This might help me to develop myself in another way. Let's say recently a little girl that I know, she hurt her hand, and I was talking with her mom, and she's like, oh yeah, she's gonna be out of the courts. And then she had a cast, and it's like, you know what? But this might be good because she actually she doesn't have a good slice. It's like, well, it's a good time. There you go. So instead of maybe it's like, oh my God, it's so unfortunate. Like I broke my wrist, which I did. It's like, you know what? Maybe I could get even faster to run around my forehand. Maybe I could work a little more on my serve and turn it into a bigger weapon, because then I didn't stop playing. Like it was hurting while I was playing, while I tossing or holding the racket, but I didn't rely on my backhand enough like maybe Emma does. Like I still can play. I still have a pretty good slice. Like my backhand wasn't what my tennis was based on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that was a good overall life lesson to like, hey, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You're gonna learn from this. You're gonna grow bigger from this.
And you did.
And I did. Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna interrupt you. I'm going through that right now because I've been injured, of course, since I started. As Jose knows, he's getting a little worried for me. He's like, Emma, what's going on? I'm gonna get there. I feel like I'm gonna break through. This is just like these little things that have been happening to me. You know, it's just like my body, like being in shock, and also like all the emotional stress and everything. It's like, okay, like let's figure out what we're doing here and let's fix some things. And I'm trying to figure it out, you know, and taking it one step at a time. But with the coach I'm working with right now, you know, I have pain, you know, here in my low back, and then my butt, and then it shoots down my leg. But you know, my forehand, I've been hitting it really close. So he's like, this is perfect. Let's take these 2-3 weeks and literally just work
on the separation,
on spacing. And you know, it's been 2 weeks. I've been just working on that, and you know, some days it's like, oh my God, like it's so boring. Not boring, but like I want to hit, I want to rally, I want to play, I want to. And then I'm like, let's do backhands, let's do volleys, And he's like, no, like take your time. You know, this is perfect. This is perfect that we can improve your forehand now, because this is what you need. Otherwise, we wouldn't take this time to work on your forehand so much. So, and you know, it's teaching me, I don't know, you just look at the things differently now that, you know, after you coached for a while and then you're playing, you just look at the things from a different perspective. You know, being more patient, knowing that it's okay if I don't rally for 2-3 weeks. I know how to do that, right? Yep. And growing, okay, I'm working on other things, you know, I'm strengthening some other parts of my body, taking some time, and yeah, I think that's a great point that you mentioned it. So I just wanted to clear that. I'll ask one more question, then you can ask a question before I. Just looking back at Baylor, and would you recommend now to a young player that's 17, 18, would you recommend to go to college and get the college experience, or to skip it and just go pro? If they have all the financials figured.
If they have, okay.
That's a big if.
Okay, yes.
Okay?
Yes. Okay.
Like what?
Okay.
What are pros and cons?
So that's, like Emma said, it's a very important point. Do you have the financials to support either, depending how you're traveling, it could be either 50,000 to 100,000, maybe even more if you're traveling with coach, a year. So yeah. So if your parents have the means, the financial means for you to support your career and not go to college, it will depend on a few things. How is your junior career? What have been your results leading up to this moment? how bad do you want it? Like, is this really your passion, or you're unsure? So it's a conversation that the coaches, the parents, and the kid must have. It's like, okay, what do you want to do with your tennis? It's like, oh, you know what? I really want to pursue my career. I don't want to go to college. I think I'm ready. Or like, I think I have what it takes if I just continue and trust the path. Or you know what? I think I might need some more matches, some more time for me to really mature. Or maybe with the physical aspects. You know, I'm not as big or as strong as I could be, and college could be a good 3 or 4 years that I can really focus on my fitness, on my tennis, and those years will kind of like lower the pressure of like, okay, I'm on tour and there is no way back to college, and for me to just focus on growing physically or mentally. So it's a conversation, and there is not a right answer, because there's been cases on both sides. There is kids that had the chance to go to college and they didn't, and they were successful ATP players, and they were heavily recruited, and like they just went on and they trust their gut, and maybe their parents did or did not have the means, but they knew what they had in terms of their mentality, their physicality, their tennis, and a lot of great things going for them. So you know what, I'm gonna go for it, and they did, and it worked out well. But also vice versa. I know players that they went pro, they had chances, they were recruited, and it didn't turn out so well for them.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a long conversation, but it comes down to how bad does the kid want it, you know? And again, if the financials are there, you know, because if the financials are there, okay, with the team and the coach, okay, let's create, with the parents and the coach, let's create a good team, a good support team with a physio, with a psychologist, with a fitness coach, with the tennis coach leading up the kid's career. Okay, this is the schedule, this is what we're gonna focus on, and make a plan. If you don't have a plan, we don't have anything. Okay, so all the most successful players and coaches, they have a plan. Okay, this is week 1, this is week 2, this is what we're gonna focus on. This is the tournament, this is what we're gonna focus on, so on, so on. Okay, so I think that's something that for coaches, if they're experienced enough, they're already doing it. If they're not, that's something that they must have a talk with both parents and player.
No, I think it's great. I think this really ties back to the episode we did a few weeks back of how we're overwhelmed by this dream of follow your dreams, and I think it's been great with you, right? With you going back on tour and everything, but having this of someone that has already gone through it, right, through the pro level and had really good success in college and pro tournaments, and now you're on the coaching side, but how a mix of your passion and then being realistic of what you can achieve. So then there's no lying to yourself, right? You're aware of what you're getting into, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's not that like painful part of it, and you're like I didn't know it was gonna be like this. It's so lonely, you know what you're getting into, you know how much it's gonna cost, if you really want it, right, and you know you have the talent, you have the ability, you have the success and the support from your parents or whoever is financing your career, then it also kind of starts merging together into something that's possible. And if it's not, you're not going to be disappointed, right? Because you knew, okay, this is what I'm getting into. If it's not, I'm going to enjoy the journey because this is what I want, right? If you want the journey and not, I'm only going to enjoy it if I get here, right? If I'm going to enjoy this, if this comes, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, I loved every single second of it. I think that's the goal, right? So I think that's great from you two that already lived it. That's fantastic, like insight to people that are just getting into it. As you said, 17, 18-year-olds that are about to sign with colleges or don't know if go pro or not. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of like experienced also the golf side and the tennis side.
Completely different sport, but I mean, I think it's really similar. And they're both country club sports, really expensive sports, right? Yeah. And going pro, it's so expensive, and I love college golf. You know what I mean? I think it's so intense here in America, which I don't think we have in neither of our 3 countries.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
In America, it's crazy how they manage to, like the biggest schools, to have a way to get you to get your degree and you can be a successful engineer or professional lawyer, whatever you study, but you can literally play at the highest level in college, right? And do that every single day of your life for 8 hours a day. So you're basically playing pro, you're not playing getting paid, but you're playing the same amount of hours. You're playing the highest players in the country. So it's fantastic. I loved it.
So when we're already on this topic, Juan.
Why not?
Let's go. Let's start.
Let's get into this. So
not too much, but
not too much, just a little bit. But so Juan mentioned when we were coming in that he's a golfer, right? Avid golfer. He started playing when he was young, and we got. I mean, I don't have to remind you guys. I got roasted by this day and night. Got a lot of hate from it. I don't care. As I said, come at me. I don't care. I don't care. Bring it on. But we talked about what was more difficult, golf or tennis. My point was that it was a terrible platform to put it in because everybody that follows this podcast is tennis lovers. Emma was like super like biased and she was like, no, but I don't know. It was just not fair. I think golf is 10 times harder in terms of technique. 100% agree. I'm gonna say my stance and then I'm gonna open it up to you.
You don't have to say your stance.
No, I'm gonna because I've made mistakes in the future in the way I phrased. I told people to fight me if they wanted to. I had to rephrase and make my ideas clear.
Okay. Breathe.
Tennis is a much more physical and harder sport in terms of the use of your body, right? It takes a lot more of you. You need to be an athlete, like a full-time, a complete athlete to play tennis at a high level. You don't have to be. I have called like teammates in college that were
overweight,
a little bit chubby. Let's leave it at that, right? Not incredibly in shape, and they were fantastic players, incredible players. So the physical aspect's not that much in there for golf. It's evolving into a bigger athlete, but it's not there. However, in tennis, I think in a shorter amount of time, you can play the sport. You can rally with someone and play a couple points. You can play a couple games in a certain amount of months. It really depends on the person. But I think if you compare it to golf, the average person, for one person to go out and be able to play 18 holes in a reasonable amount of time, in 4 hours, that it takes years to do that.
I mean, the comparison to that would be, okay, a beginner, how long would that person take to like play a match with a pro or play a match with someone that has a good idea? Because you're comparing a beginner to play a course, which a course that the same pros or people that can play can do it.
No, but you're saying, but if you're comparing the beginner to a pro in tennis, then you would have to compare the golf to a pro. And I'm not even talking about score. If some the people that I know that have beginners, when they go out the first time, I haven't met a single person in my life that has shot less than 120 shots.
Okay, that's a fair point.
You know what I mean?
Okay, this is what I think.
This is getting intense.
So, in tennis, there is so many grips, so many different ways to take your racket back, so many ways to hit the ball from different angles, different spots on the court. If we take each shot, forehand cross, backhand cross, serves, slice serves, but every single shot, there is, I don't even know how many there would be, because there's almost endless. I mean, right now you see like Ben Shelton or Alcaraz going like this, so they're coming up with new shots that you see more often. But at golf, if you take the swing of different players, the fundamentals are basically the same. Like the same take back, the same follow through, the same fundamentals in terms of the stance, in the short game, in the driver, a little more up front, in the short game, a little farther back or a little closer. The putting is everything pretty much the same. Right. There is not that much variety. Again, the fundamentals are the same in terms of the take back, contact, and follow through. Whereas in tennis, let's say, I'm inside the court and I want to go an angle. I cannot follow through the same way. I got to go here because I'm focusing on the wrist because I'm inside the court.
See, but this is where it gets interesting on how much, like what level you're talking about. Because in golf, there's 14 clubs. Every single club, it's different, right? Different distances. Every single golf course that you play is completely different. Every single hole. Every distance. Tennis, every time you step in a tennis court, it can be 3 different surfaces or 4. It's going to be the same size every time. At course, there's not a single course in the planet.
Is the surface great? Is the altitude great?
Same thing you can have.
Okay, the altitude is the same in golf. It affects.
Then there's one racket. It's pretty much the same. Like you can use different clubs. Every single golfer has 14 different clubs that are from completely different distances. Every single shot you can hit from as close as from me to this table to from here to someone that hits the driver properly, 300 yards. Yeah. The same thing that you said, like you have to switch your follow for tennis and everything. I think it's way more in golf. Depending on the you change completely. Like a good player changes their swing for a draw, for a punch shot. If you want to hit it, if you're against the wind, if you're into the wind, every single swing changes for every single shot you hit in golf.
But if you, But the swing itself, it looks pretty much the same.
Well, for me in tennis, it's like of course there's variety, but if you see the swing of Matthew Wolff in golf,
of course. I mean, okay, now we're talking about specific players.
Exactly, but like same in tennis. For me, like a forehand, I think the general technique that we teach, I think, and everybody teaches, is pretty much the same. There's variety, of course, but I think the variety in golf comes a lot more. Like you see, you can't find players that have even similar swings in golf.
Okay,
you know what I mean? And
I mean, it's gonna be a never-ending debate.
Never-ending debate.
Yeah.
Basically, the bottom line here is that tennis is harder.
I mean,
and it's 2 against 1, so.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I mean, I would like to have this conversation with 2 golfers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
You know how I know? Because one time I remember a golf page reposted that video, and everybody on the golf was like, "These people are out of their minds."
No way.
Everybody.
I mean, you see again.
But that's tennis. They reposted in the tennis page, and they were saying the same thing about the golfers.
I still saw a couple like tennis players that were like agreeing, but definitely there was more like tennis that say that tennis is harder.
You know what would be cool if, let's say,
if we did like an actual playing.
It would be like some playing, like okay, like tennis players.
Yeah, you need to take me to the golf course.
Tennis players playing golf, and then golf players playing tennis, and see okay, like.
Let's do it.
But that won't be fair because I already played tennis.
Not you. We get somebody that hasn't played tennis. One of your golfer friends.
We should have like 2 random people, like literally go out on the street, like go to Chick-fil-A and grab like the first 2 people that we see.
Have you played tennis? Have you played golf?
No, but if they haven't played any other sports, and just get them for a month.
Yeah.
That'll be a project.
You train them golf. I train them tennis.
Yes.
That'll be a project. That sounds fun.
Okay. Anyways, let's focus. Let's focus back into what matters. Why? But this is fun. I like these conversations, and I feel like you both loosened up a little bit. I feel like you're still pretty like tight.
I'm feeling better now.
All of this been good.
I was talking to Anne last time when we went, and she's like, "You should have brought some tequila shots while we're recording, so we can relax more." She was really nervous too. Okay, Juan, I'll ask another question. Now that you're a coach, okay, first of all, do you have a preference of coaching a male or a female?
I do.
You do?
But,
go ahead.
I mean, so far, the experience that I've had coaching male players have been a little easier, with exceptions. But I've coached a few girls, and they were not the easiest to deal with. Again, I've had a few, and they all had different personalities, okay? But with a little more of a common denominator to have a little of a harder time with a female player.
Why do you think is that? Because of our hormones and mood swings?
I believe so. And I've heard this before from one of my coaches in Argentina, that he used to coach this high-ranked, like almost top 100 or so, Spaniard, and he told me that out of an hour lesson, you're spending the majority of it just keeping her calm, and you cannot even talk about tennis. It's like, hey, it's okay, it's gonna be fine. Whereas with a guy, it's like, okay, I want you to do this. Okay, most of them, I'm sure there is kids that like they're freaking out for whatever reason, but I think there is, I would say, with my experience, I think with boys or with guys, you could tell them, hey, I want Y and X, and they will give you that. But the girls maybe they will, but there might be a conversation. Maybe they're like, oh, can we do this? Or maybe a little bit of a complaining here and there, which as a coach, you just want to like, hey, this is what we're doing, and there's no conversation. And you just like the perfect player would just, what are we doing? Okay, you got it. Done. Like there is not a conversation. Like, okay, I want you to move more, and that's it. Like there shouldn't be anything back, unless there is an exception. Like, hey, I'm really sore, or I think my ankle is hurting, or something like that. But it's like, hey, I want you to be a little more active with your feet. And the boy or the girl should like, okay, you got it. Okay, if it's like, oh, I don't know how to move more. Okay, that's another conversation. Okay, I want you to step a little more explosiveness, a little more explosive out of the split step. I want you to recover a little faster back to the middle. Okay, if they don't know how to move more, but with boys, I've heard less back.
Yeah, let's talk about. Okay, so you want to be, ideally, you want to be a coach on tour. So you would rather coach a male than a female? Or like it? I mean, if you would have to pick.
If I have to pick,
but like you're open-minded. Also
I'm open-minded.
with a
Yes.
female as well.
Yes.
Okay, because some of these questions I'm asking are more from like selfish reasons because I'm going back on tour.
Absolutely.
And I really value your opinion, and I think you're very knowledgeable in this sport. Like when it comes to anything, you know, from the mental side, from the technique side, everything. And I feel like you're constantly educating yourself, you're constantly working on yourself, which I think is a huge thing for every coach. You know, you're always willing to learn. I see it. So good job for that. But so what do you think for a female tennis player going back on tour? I'm just asking for myself. What is the three most important things I would say, like, to work on? Would you focus on getting strong first, technique cleaning up, more like on the mental side, scheduling tournaments? Like, how would you prioritize things? How would you go about this? Because, you know, I do have experience and I'm the coach, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go into this and it's going to be, but it's like, it's not so easy. Yep. You know, it's not easy. I'm like, what?
Yes.
You know? So do I focus on my strength? Do I focus on my mobility? Do I focus on, you know, injury prevention? Do I focus on my technique? Do I focus on more match play, more weekend tournaments, less tournaments, but practicing more strength? Yep. You know, like,
there's
so
a lot.
many.
There's
so
a
what
lot.
is in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, in your case, I'll get healthy first. I'll get healthy to the point, because right now with this little pain that you're having here and there, you're holding back in practice, which is holding you back for you to get back on tour in the best way possible and the fastest way possible, right? So I'll prioritize, and not just for you, for anybody, get healthy. Like take care of the controllables. Okay, that's something that they really, really mention in college, and I'm a firm believer of the controllables. How do I sleep? How do I eat? Do I take care of my fitness? Do I take care of my recovery? Am I suffering a little bit for me to do an ice bath? Or maybe deal with a little bit of an hour being bored, just stretching. Sitting up, I don't know, once or twice to yoga a week. Things like that like are within my control, but are gonna help me to not skip days on court, which is the priority. Okay, because the more time you spend on the court training smartly, the best you can start performing once you get into the matches. Okay. In terms of the timing, will be, I think, again, it's very personal. Okay, when do I start feeling that, like, okay, I'm stretching for balls, I'm running full speed, and I'm almost splitting, or like right now that you're working on clay, am I able to like slide and everything pain-free? Am I able to like swing fast, pain-free? Okay, now let's see if we can get another 2-3 weeks practicing at that intensity with no pain, at least. Let's get into tournaments. Okay, that's how I will go about it. But your health being your priority, absolutely.
How many tournaments would you play a year?
That's also depending on the body. Why are
you laughing?
That's also depending on how your body's feeling. I mean, you've seen guys playing challengers or even ATPs and they go 30 and above. But then you see someone like at the very top and they're only playing maybe 15, 20, or maybe even less, you know? So like also, okay, what are my goals? Yeah. Am I trying to achieve a certain prize money for me to cover, let's say, your expenses. Let's say you don't have a sponsor, like, okay, I really need to meet this so I can cover my expenses, which honestly will be the wrong way to think, to go about things, because you want to focus on your tennis. The money will come afterwards. Or am I meeting a ranking? Or am I meeting, okay, maybe a goal in a certain tournament? I want to win a 25K. Let's say now that you're starting. Okay, I want to finish this year. I'm winning at 125K, and that's my goal. Okay, so also keeping in mind and being very true to yourself, how's your body? How am I feeling? Because what you don't want to push is, you know what, it's bothering me, but there is this other 25K that they're nearby, but they're next week, and now you're pushing it, and now you might push harder than you should have, and now it's not another week or so, now it's a month or two, you know. So you need to be very, very careful and always in like synced with your body, and really, really respect what you're feeling, and doing everything in your power for you to take care of that. To recover and make sure you minimize everything. However, it's a sport, a very physical sport. Pains are gonna come, and this is for everybody. It's okay to be sore. It's okay to feel a little bit of discomfort. This is all is if you're giving your best out there, okay? Because a lot of kids, they don't even feel sore because they're just not trying their best, or not running as much as they could, or not being as intense and as physical as they really should. But right now you're feeling that because I've seen your videos and I've seen you training, and you do give your best out there. Okay, so it is very much okay. Okay, but okay, what am I doing before? Am I doing a good warm up? Am I taking my hour after the practice for me to have a good cool down and a good stretch and a good foam roll session? You know, I know you're doing these things, but okay, maybe a little more, or maybe you might have to, right now that you're coaching as well, I have to cancel or like try to start a little earlier so I have maybe a longer warm up, because that's just as important as the time that you spend on court hitting the ball. Okay, I mean, there is plenty of stories out there of the top pros that they arrive to the club 3-4 hours before, and they're just on the bike, and they're doing their bands, and they're doing all these sort of exercises to loosen up the body before the tennis warm-up, because they know that warm-up is as important as anything else. Okay, so sometimes, and it happens at a low level, like, I don't know, let's say Barrio de Boca that we're nearby. You see a lot of kids, they're just grabbing the racket, they go like this, they move a little bit, and like on they go. And they might still win, you know? But that is not a routine or a behavior of someone that wants to do something great with their tennis, you know? And that's also the maturity that you start seeing as the level gets higher. Okay, let's see at the future level that you're gonna start hopefully soon, you're gonna see maybe girls doing just a quick jog, maybe a little bit advanced, and they start. And a 20-minute warm-up. And then you start, let's say, doing great, hopefully, and I really wish you the best. And you start progressing, and it's 50K, 70Ks, and you're gonna start seeing girls maybe training with their physio, traveling with their physio, and arriving a little earlier. And you see them very, very intense and very focused in the warm-up off and on the court. It's like, okay, they mean business. And you see them on the court being super professional and taking care of everything. You see them with an extra bag for their hydration, their snacks, their towels. It's like, okay, it's real now.
She's serious.
See, it's serious. Okay? So...
yeah, it's taking it to the next... I really love that. I really love that. Sorry for interrupting you, because you see... and I think this is for all the young players to listen to this and to understand the importance of it, because I wish that at my younger age that I took it more seriously. When my dad would be like, stretch and make me stretch out there, I would always hate it. Or like warm up, like you said, literally jog, bend, okay, stretch. And I'm even like, I even do it nowadays sometimes, like because I'm in a rush, you know, and I'm aware of it. But then it's like, okay, like what your goals are, and you have to understand that this is the priority, and this is what's gonna affect the rest of everything. Yep. I wish I did it, because I would not have that many injuries, right? Why am I dealing with injuries my whole life? Because of those. I did not take care of those parts, and I'm guilty of it, and I admit it. And even now, I know I should, like you said, suffer and spend that extra hour of stretching, extra 30 minutes of yoga, extra 30 minutes of foam rolling, instead of just like half-assing it. So that's, yeah, after leaving here, I'm going to do yoga.
Yeah, I mean, all those things add up to the ultimate goal.
Yeah, exactly.
So you really have to have your goal very much set and like on your absolutely north. You look forward and that's all you see. For you to not see these things as a chore.
Yeah. Yes.
Because a lot of times kids do, and everybody does, like a stretch. But do I have to? Do I really need to? And they just go here.
Yeah.
And on the go. It's like, oh, did you? And the coach, because the coach, let's say in academies, he cannot be paying attention to 8, 9, 10 kids. So like, did you stretch? Oh yeah, I did. But like, okay, now you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, am I really taking care of everything I can? Again, the controllable is within. It doesn't need any talent. It doesn't need any special skill. Anybody can just sit down right there where they are and just go. Like one of the easiest ways that I did, that one of my coaches in Argentina told me, toe to bottom. You start with your calf. And then what muscle is next? Okay, maybe my tibia, my muscle here. How do you call this? The shin.
Shin?
No, but the shin is the bone.
Shin is the bone.
Okay,
I don't know how it's the bone.
Let's say, okay,
in
then
front
the
of
quad.
The calf.
And then the hams, like in an organized way, because a lot of times, like, oh, I've seen this stretch before.
Wait, you said from top to bottom.
It doesn't matter. But
like
just have an
either
order.
Here or bottom to top.
Just an order.
Matter. Yeah, take every little muscle.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so just a way to, like, I don't know, make it organized, make it fun. It's like, okay, what's next? Okay. That a lot of times kids don't even know how to stretch.
Oh yeah.
Or like what to stretch, and they just, oh yeah, I think this looks about right, and that's it. And they go home. Like, did you stretch? Yes, I did. And no, you didn't. And then what that's gonna affect the next practice, and then the next day, and it adds up. Just like good habits add up.
Yeah.
Bad habits also add up.
Yeah.
And I always, like, when we were on the court those 5 times, like, let's say if you're not explosive out of the split step, if you're not explosive on the recovery back, unconsciously you're telling yourself, hey, it's okay if you do that.
Yeah.
So then when you go to the match, don't expect anything more than that.
Yeah.
So like, oh, why am I late for the next ball? Because you didn't recover fast enough.
Yeah.
Or why didn't I hit this shot as good as you could have? Because you didn't get early enough.
Yeah.
But you could have. You just, in practice, this is what you've been doing. So you cannot expect anything less than that. And that is on the court, and again, off the court. You cannot expect going on the tournament and all of a sudden start stretching and having a great warm-up. It's okay, when you're training here locally, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. So I think that is kind of like the progression in terms of level and the professionalism and maturity. Some have the luck to maybe have a coach that is a constant reminder. It's like, hey, did you do this? And if the player wants it bad enough, he's like, no, I'm gonna do it now. Right. But when you're on your own and you don't have that constant reminder, which happens to a lot of future players, and that's the reason why a lot of them remain in future, that maybe they have that extra push in terms of those habits, but they're on their own. They're looking to play 20 plus tournaments a year, but they might have the money to do that, but without a coach. So it's a little unfortunate, which I was also part of it. Like I was doing well in tournaments, but my body wasn't holding up as good as I could have because I didn't take care of these things as well. So I also regret a few of my past. But I learned from it, and now I just take that. I think that's one of the reasons why players are, for the most part, good coaches, because you also have that voice of experience. It's like, hey, like I remember going to this tournament, and I was having like these amazing warm-ups, and like I really took care of it. I won the tournament. Mm-hmm. And the kid's like, oh, what tournament did you play? Oh yeah, I won it right here. Like, this week, I warmed up like crazy, and I meditated, and I ate amazing, and I went to sleep early, and like I knew I was going to win the tournament because I was taking care of that. And the kid is like, okay, I believe this coach, right? Whereas if sometimes, let's say a lot of coaches out there that maybe didn't have the player background, the coach, the player is like, oh, okay, maybe he's not on board as much. Okay, that's something that you have an advantage.
Yeah.
That you can, like, you have the voice of experience, and like you're like, yeah, I was 100 in doubles and 200 in singles and this and that. It's like, okay, yes, I gotta listen, Coach Emma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same with me. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I had this success with this success with tennis, and you tell a little story there.
Yes.
And they buy into it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
So we also are kind of like the voice or like a funnel of like what we got from our coaches. Like everything that I teach, I was very lucky to have amazing coaches in Argentina and a French coach, which he helped me a ton with absolutely everything. And like, it's just me translating or putting in my own words what I learned from them and just picking. Like, okay, I know this really helped me. Okay, let me try this. Yeah. And also like, okay, every player is different. Okay, I need to adapt the way I come about things to this player. Okay, so that's one of the things that I'm just very excited to just share with the players that I work with, and that hopefully in the future I'll work with.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
That's great. And well, just to finish off, I wanted to mention a little bit about the mental, if you can talk briefly, because we don't have a lot of time, but briefly about the mental side of like high performance. Because I recently heard this podcast, I don't know if you've heard about Ricks and Gracie or the Gracie family, they're a jiu-jitsu family that came from Brazil, like from the 1950s, and they keep passing on like the jiu-jitsu practice. They basically brought Brazilian jiu-jitsu to the United States, but they're this like legendary family that they pass on the knowledge to the kids, and they're like every single one of them has been like highest champions in the martial arts, right? And this man Ricks and Gracie is like a legend in MMA. He's not even like martial arts, like athlete, like as an athlete as well. I think he fought over like 475 fights, never lost a single one.
Wow.
Like crazy guy, and he's on probably his 50s, 60s now. But he's very spiritual about how he goes things, right? And he only got into MMA. He fought MMA, and he would beat all these like huge guys only with wrestling and jiu-jitsu techniques. Wow. And the reason why I bring this up is because it really stuck to me that he mentioned how for the highest level in everything you do, right? Because we talk about sports, right? When it's a sports podcast, but this really goes to everyone that wants to do the best or like achieve excellence in anything they do, right? You can be whatever, a lawyer, doctor, as we said, and be the best you can. How mind, body, and spirit need to be in sync, right? If one of them is not, right? Obviously, body is the most obvious one that we talk about, like technique, physicality, healthiness, and all that. But spirit, which is really believing in yourself, right? Like really believing that you have what it takes, and then your mind, right? Like that your mind works. And he tells this really cool story that how he was like 17 years old fighting this like 35-year-old man that was like huge, incredible like fighter. And he was like really beat up in the second round. It was back in the day when there was no gloves, not anything. It was like everything was allowed. And he was like, he felt like he was gonna die, right? And he found a way to just like go like over that hustle and actually beat the guy. And he said that I realized in that moment how my only enemy was not even the other guy, it was only my mind, right? So can you talk about how you tackle this with kids now that you're a coach, or how do you see that coming into the tennis, how the three like spirit, mind, and body need to come in sync for success? So
with that, I'm a firm believer of meditation and visualization. Did it myself. Best weeks I had, best tournaments I had, best matches I've had. It was the most I was meditating and visualizing prior to the matches and the tournaments. I keep it very simple. There is just actually everybody has access to it if they have Netflix. It's called Headspace. It's very simple. It's just a video that you can watch at the beginning. The spokesperson just walks you through it, and then at some point of the video, the exercise starts. Okay, and you just gotta be willing, if you're not that into meditating, to really you're gonna look and feel silly at first because you're just there sitting with your eyes closed, like thoughts will creep in. It's like, what am I doing this for? But if you follow what the guy is saying and you just kind of have an open mind of the benefits of it, it could really do great things in and out of the court. Because a lot of times, basically, long story short, we're not present. And these exercises and overall meditating and visualizing helps you to be present when you need it the most. And not freaking out about things, just not freaking out about things, and just overall just knowing that like things are gonna be very much okay.
Yeah.
And not making a bigger deal of things. But yeah, so there is just a video, just following along, just trying to follow the instructions, and then the visualizing part, which also I was able to come out with my best tennis with this visualizing exercise. There was this mental coach. His name is Brian Kane. He came to Baylor. Our head coach brought him back in the day, and he came with like a recording device, and he started asking a few questions. Like, do you remember the best matches that you played? Try to remember exactly the court, the place, the surface, the ball. What do you remember about that? They try to remember all those things. Do you remember any shots? Do you remember any moments of the match that really turn up a light saying, I'm playing my best tennis right now? And try to go back in with your mind, trying to put yourself in that moment. Because we all know, like as tennis players, maybe as a golf player as well, like you know exactly, like I remember points, I remember courts, I remember a lot of things that like I was kicking butt that day, you know? So you say it. You said it to this mental coach. And then he made a recording for me. He made a personal one for me. It's like, do you remember in this court against so-and-so that you were doing this and that? Go back to that. Close your eyes, put yourself back into that moment. And mentally, it's kind of like you're playing another match and you're putting yourself in like the best, in those great feelings on the court, feeling the ball, just crushing forehands inside out or backhands down the line or hitting aces on the line and just being crushing it. So then your mind is like, I did it. I can do it again. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't I do it? But I wouldn't be able to do it today. Mm-hmm. So then you're already in that like best self mentality in terms of tennis. Mm-hmm. And I was able to come up like back to back, like it's just on the dot. Like I was able to come up with some amazing tennis just by visualizing those things prior to the match. And I don't know, but I would like to think that the guys on tour, they do something similar.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure they do. I mean,
do
they must. Huh?
Do you meditate? I remember telling you about it, but I don't know.
We'll talk about it in the next episode because we're out of time and...
She doesn't. We have to use those at least once.
Yeah, we will. I don't know why we have it. It's okay. We'll talk about it. Anyways, we have to close it. That was great. I mean, so much useful information. I feel like I have to ask you so many more things. In the next episode, we'll do another one for sure. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I don't know if you want people to follow you anywhere.
Yeah, my Instagram is Juan Benitez 95. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you all. And if you guys have any questions, happy to answer. I'm just a text away. I'm pretty active on social media, but yeah, I'm just a nice guy.
I'm just a nice guy.
I'm just a nice guy. What can you do? I like helping.
He means well.
I like helping.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Very good. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for supporting and listening to our podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media.
And be sure to listen to next week's episode of the EMAzing Tennis Podcast.